you lied to us about uniting the party. I'm still a Labour Party member, and you've expelled and witch hunted in the most vicious way I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I've been a member of the Labour Party for a long time.
I don't think it's right to make those comparisons. It's completely different. And the Prime Minister said yesterday, I think almost in the same breath, talked about the diverse country that we are.
Historic cabinet reshuffle, Britain's political power shift. Right. Before we dive into what could be the most significant political earthquake of Starmer's premiership, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you will fundamentally change how you view the current Labour government. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The corridors of Westminster are buzzing this morning, and for bloody good reason. In what can only be described as a seismic shift in British politics, we've just witnessed the first major cabinet reshuffle of Sir Keir Starmer's tenure, and it's absolutely explosive. Angela Rayner, the firebrand Deputy Prime Minister who's never been one to mince words, has dramatically resigned from government after violating the ministerial code. But here's where it gets interesting. Her departure has triggered a domino effect that's reshaping the very fabric of our political landscape. Let me paint you the picture. Rayner, the West Yorkshire MP who rose from working-class roots to become one of Labour's most recognisable faces, found herself in hot water over stamp duty payments on a seaside property. Now, we're not talking about some minor administrative oversight here. This is a full-blown breach of the ministerial code that's cost her not one, not two, but 3 positions: Deputy Prime Minister, Housing Secretary, and Deputy Labour Leader. The woman who once famously called the Tories scum has found herself on the wrong side of the very standard she spent years demanding from her opponents. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now because this analysis is about to get properly juicy. Starmer's response to this crisis has been nothing short of masterful political theatre. Rather than letting the scandal define his government, he's used it as cover for the most ambitious cabinet restructure we've seen in years. Enter Yvette Cooper, the Pontefract, Castleford, and Nottingley MP who's just been catapulted from Home Secretary to Foreign Secretary in what can only be described as a political chess move of the highest order. Cooper isn't just any politician. She's a heavyweight with decades of experience, a former Treasury Minister who knows her way around both domestic and international affairs. Her appointment represents something far more significant than a simple reshuffle. It's a statement of intent. And here's a kicker that's got Westminster absolutely buzzing. For the first time in British history, women now hold all 3 great offices of state. Cooper as Foreign Secretary, Rachel Reeves continuing as Chancellor, and Shabana Mahmood stepping into the Home Office. This isn't just representation. It's a revolution in British governance that would have been unimaginable even a decade ago. The optics are stunning, but the substance runs deeper. Cooper's transition from the Home Office to the Foreign Office isn't the demotion some critics are suggesting. Quite the opposite. Sources close to Downing Street are calling this appointment a diplomatic masterstroke, pointing to Cooper's recent success in negotiating the returns agreement with France. This is a politician who understands the delicate balance of international relations at a time when Britain desperately needs steady hands on the diplomatic wheel. Speaking of which, make sure you're subscribed because we're going to be dissecting every aspect of this government's foreign policy pivot in upcoming videos, and you won't want to miss a single development. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the timing. Rayner's resignation doesn't happen in isolation. This comes at a moment when Labour's been facing increasing pressure over immigration policy, economic challenges, and questions about their ability to deliver on campaign promises. Some might see this reshuffle as damage control, but the more astute political observers recognize it for what it really is: calculated repositioning. The elevation of Shabana Mahmood to Home Secretary while simultaneously making her Deputy Prime Minister is particularly intriguing. Mahmood, the former Justice Secretary, brings a legal background to a role that's been increasingly defined by its intersection with law and order issues. Her appointment suggests Starmer's betting on competence over celebrity, a marked departure from the political showmanship we've become accustomed to. David Lammy's move from Foreign Secretary to Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary isn't a sideways step, it's strategic repositioning. Lammy's been effective on the international stage, but his domestic political skills are perhaps better suited to his new role overseeing justice reform. This isn't musical chairs, it's careful orchestration of talent where it's most needed. The speed with which this reshuffle has been executed tells us something crucial about Starmer's leadership style. This isn't a prime minister who panics under pressure. This is someone who sees crisis as opportunity. The Rayner scandal could have paralyzed a weaker government for weeks. Instead, Starmer's turned it into a moment of renewal that's given his administration what Downing Street sources are calling a fresh sense of purpose. And if you're enjoying this analysis, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started on what promises to be a fascinating period in British politics. The international implications of Cooper's appointment can't be overstated. At a time when British diplomacy has never been more critical, with Russian aggression destabilizing Europe and the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Cooper's experience and pragmatic approach could prove invaluable. Her background dealing with complex domestic issues around policing and security gives a unique insight into the intersection of domestic and foreign policy that her predecessor perhaps lacked. But let's not forget the political calculation here. Cooper's move from the Home Office comes just as immigration policy was becoming increasingly contentious. Critics suggest she was struggling to get to grips with the complexities of immigration control, but government supporters argue her huge diplomatic win with the France Returns Agreement proves she was exactly the right person for international negotiations. The broader question this reshuffle raises is about the direction of Starmer's government. The emphasis on women in senior positions isn't tokenism, it's transformation. These appointments signal a government that's serious about both competence and representation, that understands the optics of leadership matter as much as the substance of policy. What's particularly clever about this entire maneuver is how it's managed to turn a potential crisis into a narrative of renewal. Rather than spending weeks defending Rayner or minimizing the scandal, Starmer's pivoted to talking about fresh energy, new purpose, and strengthened leadership. It's political jiu-jitsu of the highest order. The timing couldn't be better either. With economic challenges mounting and public services under strain, this reshuffle allows the government to present itself as responsive and dynamic rather than defensive and stagnant. Cooper's appointment, in particular, offers the prospect of more assertive British diplomacy at precisely the moment when international leadership is desperately needed. Make sure you're subscribed because in our next video, we'll be diving deep into how this reshuffle positions Labour for the challenges ahead. And trust me, there's more drama coming. This story is far from over. The real test of this reshuffle won't be the initial headlines, but how these new appointments perform in their roles over the coming months. Cooper's success as Foreign Secretary will be measured not just in diplomatic achievements, but in how effectively she can represent British interests on the global stage. Mahmood's tenure at the Home Office will be defined by her ability to tackle the immigration challenges that have bedeviled her predecessors. What we're witnessing isn't just a cabinet reshuffle, it's the maturation of Starmer's premiership. This is a prime minister who's learning to use crisis as a catalyst for change, who understands that in politics, standing still is moving backwards. The appointment of Cooper, the elevation of Mahmood, and the repositioning of Lamy all speak to a government that's thinking strategically about both immediate challenges and long-term positioning. The opposition will undoubtedly try to frame this as chaos, as evidence of a government in disarray. But the speed and decisiveness of these moves suggest something quite different, a leadership team that's prepared to make tough decisions quickly and effectively. In an era of political uncertainty, that's precisely the kind of leadership Britain needs. This reshuffle marks the end of one chapter of Starmer's premiership and the beginning of another. It's a government reset that addresses immediate problems while positioning for future challenges. Whether it succeeds will depend on execution, but the ambition is undeniable. British politics just got a whole lot more interesting, and UK Connors will be here to analyze every twist and turn. Subscribe now, because this story is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what comes next in the continuing drama of British political life.